Leadership in healthcare today goes far beyond business outcomes. It's about navigating complexity, building trust, enabling innovation, and creating ecosystems that are both ethical and inclusive. Namaste and welcome to the Pharma Frontiers by OPPI. I am Asawari Sathaye, your host. As OPPI marks 60 years, this season explores the power of partnerships and how collaboration continues to shape the future of healthcare in India. Joining me today is a respected industry leader whose journey reflects resilience, transformation, and purpose driven leadership. Meenakshi Nevatia, Country President and Managing Director, Pfizer India. Meenakshi is also the chair for the OPPI Ethics and Business Integrity Work Group. Meenakshi, it's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you, Asawari. Thanks for the opportunity.
Meenakshi, you bring over 3 decades of leadership and understanding of the pharmaceutical industry. In this entire journey, if you could take us through some milestones or defining moments that one sort of had you understand the industry better, and cliched as it may sound, but as a woman leader, were there any opportunities or circumstances that taught you a lot in that way?
I think what that allowed me to do was get very different perspectives on the industry, not just pharma, but also healthcare in general. I'll come to the next chapter of my life, but my defining moment, I do feel my own for my personal journey as well as my professional journey was in 2001 when I was in South Africa, and we were appointed by the Gates Foundation, a private sector client, and the government of Botswana to launch HIV treatment in the country of Botswana. And I was the the engagement manager, project leader on it. And so we went in there as a McKinsey team, 6 of us, ready to get on with it. And once we were there, we realized that the issue was completely different. The issue was all about the stigma associated with HIV. I'm still talking 2001. It was associated with many practices and things that people in that country were doing or using, not using, prevention, etc., which was leading to this high incidence. 43% of the adult population was HIV positive. But most of them did not know it.
So it was awareness issue.
It was awareness, and it was lack of testing. Nobody, you don't want to know you have a disease if after that you're going to be stigmatized for the rest of your life, and there is no cure. Put yourself in that situation, right?
Difficult.
And it was impossible. So I think the whole the project definition changed, the problem statement changed. A 3-month assignment became a 1-year assignment. It was not about rolling out antiretroviral treatment. It was about just changing the whole ecosystem in which HIV can be managed and prevented and treated. But a lot of it was actually in prevention. And 1 year later, I mean, it was my most humbling experience, my most impactful experience, and my most memorable experience in all my career, right? And I think it was because it was so real. We were living with people who had HIV. Many of my Ministry of Health people were positive. We were in meetings where the whole conversation was around vertical burial versus horizontal burial because they were running out of space to bury their people. It was about talking to churches to launch contraception in a Catholic church, which was completely different. And I think after that, I just couldn't go back and do consulting. I left and then I joined Novartis because it was like I just could not be on the other side anymore. But I think that was, to me, those learnings still carry forward. That often we approach a problem and it looks like you know what it is, but actually what's underlying it is completely different. And we need to solve our problem in the context of the ecosystem. And I think if I fast forward from 2000 to 2025 and the conversations we have at OPPI, often we are approaching it from our company perspective, whether it's launching new therapies, pricing frameworks, regulatory frameworks, data protection. We are coming at it in one way, but when you start looking at it from a government's perspective, it has to fit into their ecosystem. They are not going to fit into ours. And I think that's been a huge lesson for me, that when you walk into any government office, you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes. Your problem that seems so large is probably not even worth a minute of their thought sometimes. how do you make it relevant for them, or you change the problem you're going with. How do you accept situations where they may not want to do what you are thinking, but you come to a compromise. So I think that's, I mean, and I could go on and on about the learnings from that experience, but I think all my other milestones don't compare to that. So I think that was probably my first moment of realizing what business means, what impact means, what purpose means. And I think my second defining moment was in UK, because our CEO at the time was very, very clear that anybody who wants to be a general manager has to do sales. And here I was coming, I was an associate partner at McKinsey, I was heading strategy for the cardiovascular business at Novartis, which was their largest business at the time. You know, it had blood pressure, diabetes, we were launching in heart failure. So I had this completely form a wrong sense of self about the importance of my job. And here is the CEO saying, you know what, if you want to be a general manager, you have to go and do sales.
Humbling.
Yeah, it's like, you know, firstly, it's like, what are you talking about, you know, but then you just have to do it. He's the CEO of the company. There's not much I can do, right? And I did that. I did go to the UK. That was the only country I could do it in, because rest of Europe was not speaking English. You know, the sales teams were not speaking English. So I did go. I did a whole year of sales, then sales management, selling blood pressure and cholesterol lowering agents and so on. And it was one of the best experiences. My own sales experience was really good, but as a sales manager, it was just me and my team of 10 people. All of them were way more experienced than me. Older, but more importantly, more experienced than me. And, you know, all these things we talk about, field force excellence, metrics, etc. You start realizing you can measure whatever you want to, but if you haven't got into their hearts and minds, if they don't believe that what they're selling is the best thing for patients, if they don't believe that doing X number of calls per day makes a difference, if they don't believe on the impact that, you know, the drug will have on patients, they cannot convince a doctor. I mean, no, it's not the most exciting job, right? You're going from doctor to doctor. And sales is same everywhere. It's not like it's different in UK versus India. So I think that was a complete, my approach to people leadership changed quite a bit, where I was originally all about thinking, problem solving, analytics. You know, it completely changed to communication, the why of the situation, hearts and minds. And so much of my time, you know, was in hanging out with my people. That was far more important than all the other stuff we did, you know. So I think that was defining, again, on hindsight. In the moment, I didn't realize how big a difference it made. But on hindsight, I do think it changed my entire ethos and approach to leadership, because it was really, it's all about people. You can have everything else, but until you won the hearts and minds of the people, it doesn't matter. And yeah, I used to do field visits all the time, but it didn't matter what happened when I was there. What was important is when I'm not with that salesperson, what does he or she do, which is 20 days of the year, right? So 20 days of the month. So I think that was a big thing, that, you know, you need to build an organization, you need to have people who are willing to do their best when they're not with you. When they're with you, they'll do it. But when they're not with you, that's what really matters. So I think that was, right after that, I had my son. So you know, so I think the combination of that people leadership role, and then then add to that the idea of having a child. And then, you know, I think that whole 3 years in a way transformed my approach to people leadership, the importance of empathy, the importance of building trust, things like that, which I think in the past I placed much more importance on the brain side of things versus the heart side
analytics
of things.
Versus
correct.
Nice.
So, yeah, interesting. And I think that was a complete change for me. I think it did many things. Of course, I had no idea what to do. So it was, you know, probably, you know, if you ask me what's your biggest failure, it's that. If the biggest success is also that, which is really ironic. But I think you just don't know what to do. You barely know the products. You don't know any of the people. All the conversation is happening in Spanish.
And it's a crisis.
The regulators speak in Spanish. I do not speak. I now do speak Spanish, but at that point I didn't.
Amazing.
And so I think it was the, you know, the dependence on others, the making sure all the people are, you know, talking from the same hymn sheet. The team building that happened, you know, but I would have taken a long time to get to know my people. But in that crisis, you get to know people very quickly.
True.
And then you're all on the same side. There's no different sides, because it's you versus the issue.
Correct.
So I think it was one of the best bonding moments in my team.
Imagine.
And it is strange, but I think, it's like it cleaned out the business. Yes, that first year was challenging, but we know the health of the business overall improved significantly.
Amazing.
There was no quality issue as far as patients were concerned. So there was no safety issue. It was just about complying to dossiers and things like that. So it was a massive cleanup, but I think it was a great learning experience about when you're in those roles, what matters is how you can make a crisis into a real opportunity. This line is a cliched line, but I do feel for me it was absolutely real.
Correct.
So yeah, I think I draw upon these different experiences and
Amazing.
everything I've done since then. But I think, yeah, one is putting it all in the context of the situation you're in. Second is the importance of, people, empathy, trust versus all the other stuff. And I think last but not least is, how to, whatever you're faced with, how do you make it into an opportunity? It can be a crisis, it can be a success story.
Amazing.
Either which way. So yeah, I guess that's a long answer to a short question. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
But Mark, taking up from those experiences that you had as a woman leader in all those situations that you described, or even now as you lead India business for Pfizer, were things, if I can compare, better, or were there any opportunities or experiences that you felt you were able to deal with better as a woman leader? This is also a little cliched, but it's still coming from that background of, because you spoke of empathy. You spoke of, challenging situations where you had just given birth, but you were still, getting into running a business, etc. So how did you get those? I mean, how were you able to balance things or,
No, I get your question. I think what I'd say is that, if I look at some of the dimensions of things, the dimensions of my learnings, whether it was the empathy or whether it was the importance of people leadership, trust, was being a woman an advantage or a disadvantage? I'd say neither in a way. But I think sometimes as women, we have the freedom to become emotional at work with our colleagues. We can laugh, we can joke, we can empathize. One of my colleagues, she had a situation with her partner and the partner ended up in hospital, and I was sitting there with her the whole night. It was probably just easier as a woman to do that, right? So I think there were opportunities that were given to me that maybe made it easier since I was a woman. There were other situations where it made it harder as well. So much of a muchness, it evens out in the long run. But I won't say there's any one thing, but I think there was, there are some that, it's an advantage, some that are not. Definitely having my son going through the, the pregnancy, maternity leave, it changed my approach to understanding people, right? Because I realized, for me, that doesn't matter what job I do, the number one priority is going to be my son. True. So I think that appreciation of other people's personal life definitely came because I had the privilege of becoming a mother. Otherwise, I would probably not have realized it as much. Not that I'm not saying men don't realize it. It's just that for me personally, I realized it because of that experience.
Right.
Which I really am grateful for. So yeah, there were moments. But I did try to approach my journey almost like, it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman. But I did have a mentor and he called me out on it. And he was like, maybe to you it doesn't matter, but it does matter to many others. And now it's no longer about you. It's about what you are going to be as a role model to others.
Absolutely.
So this assumption that you're making that it shouldn't matter is also a sign of arrogance. And so you're not being empathetic to others for whom it does matter.
Okay.
So I think, again, I'm bringing up this whole piece around mentorship, but sometimes you need people to call you out on it. It sounds very like bravado to say, oh, it doesn't matter. But that's not the point anymore. The point is for some, it does matter. And you better be there to figure out how you can make the path easier for others because it's no longer about you.
As OPPI completes 60 years, the central theme this year is Power of Partnerships. How does that theme resonate with you?
No, I think, Asawari, the wording Power of Partnerships, absolutely we're all in that, in it together in a sense. And I define the word partnerships in many ways, actually. I think one is partnership. We talked a little bit earlier about, putting the problem in the context of the government you're working with. So the partnership opportunities with the government, which, we're still trying to unlock quite a few, but I think all of us members of OPPI are looking to see how we can truly become a partner to the government instead of just being seen as a industry association. So there's an overall spirit of partnerships. What we've also found is, for us, even in our business here, recently we announced partnerships with one big Indian pharma company. Before that, we've done a couple others. And what we find is even those, all the way there's a government level partnership and you come down to a business level partnership and everything in between. But what we found is that even with that, you can unlock so many, with the right partner, you can unlock so many opportunities for growth and impact. And that's what we saw with the one we announced in December, because we had some great products, legacy products. This company had a lot of people on the ground, and they were a leader in respiratory. And it was a perfect fit to take our products to many, many more people. So I think that to me is the real power, is how do you unlock unlock opportunities for growth and impact through partnership. That to me is a fundamental principle of a partnership, and it can happen with companies, Indian pharma companies. It can happen with governments. We've also tried out a partnership, it's called the Lungs Alliance, which is looking at a partnership with two other companies, AstraZeneca and Roche, which is for testing to determine, it's an oncology testing for lung testing to figure out what exactly is the gene composition, what could be the implications.
Okay.
And it's helping us, identify potential cancers where otherwise they could have gotten missed. And that we're doing as a partnership of 3 companies that traditionally compete with each other.
Right.
But when it comes to the diagnostic, we can make a big difference, because, it doesn't matter whose product or anyone. It could be even something else that the patient gets onto. But ultimately, it's all about making sure patients are at least aware of it. So I guess partnerships can take many forms. And I do believe, as long as they're done with the spirit of unlocking an opportunity or solving an issue. It can happen for solving issues also. I think it can be extremely powerful. So it makes a lot of sense, A, given our 60 years in the country, but B, also given the, the context that the country is in. I think it's a perfect theme from that perspective.
Interesting. Yeah. Given India's stance today, and we are talking about a global sort of a better picture, how India sets that example for the world, how do you see ethics becoming a very important conversational part? And second, to just add to that question, in India today, we already have the UCPMP rolled out. How do you see the force of ethics and business working together, compliance in a setup like that?
No, very relevant question, Asawari. Something that as companies as well, I mean, historically, when you do these ethics mappings, and we have all these countries plotted against corruption indices and so on, we are not that high up, right? But I think, global companies have come to realize, what it takes to do business in India, and how, with the right controls in place, it can be done in an extremely compliant way. So that is definitely, that is a big part of our roles as leaders of companies here, is how do we do it in the right way. And I've been very encouraged in my conversation with many of the larger Indian companies when we explored partnerships and so on, that they're also placing the same level of importance to these. It's not like this is just the domain of multinationals. Many of the large Indian companies are also placing the right level of importance to doing business the right way. So I think that's the overarching, the spirit under which we are operating. And within that, the UCPMP rollout was actually very welcome in so many ways. I know there were areas where we felt that it was a very black and white approach, and there needed to be some nuances, right? And we've discussed some of those, and the government also is open to how we flex it. But the fundamental fundamental tenet of UCPMP was that, there should be no incentive to prescribe medicines, because, the patients just take what the doctor says. Absolutely. And there should be complete, there should be no practices that can create a feeling of mistrust between patient and doctor, between patient and pharma company, between patient and government. So I think the UCPMP that way has gone a long way to address it. Obviously, it has to take some draconian steps, otherwise you can't control it. But I think just having it there, for us, when we compare our own internal controls to UCPMP, a lot of our internal controls are stricter. But there were 1 or 2 things UCPMP introduced, whether it's, meeting attendance, things like that, which allowed us to make our own controls even stricter. But generally, we were probably, stricter than what they were saying. And that's true for many multinationals.
True.
But for the Indian companies, they had to, make some transformations. And I do believe many have done that. But it does allow us to just operate more freely. And also for our teams, I feel like it's given our teams, the confidence to walk away from situations which are feeling not right. It just gives them that, because there is a code of operation in our country rolled out by our government that doesn't allow it. So even for the salesperson, it becomes much easier to say no to things. So I feel in many ways having a strict code, which is not too strict but yet saying the right things, is so valuable, both from a actual practices but also for our people who are often in situations where they have to say no to a customer that may be a very important customer. But now they're able to do that. So I think in many ways it just increases the overall level of trust. Nice. And all of us in our partnerships, whether we have a partnership, a large part of it is about ensuring that we're doing things compliantly. The compliance policies of companies, we look at that. So I think all in all, it's moving in the right direction. The code helps in many ways. Yeah, there's always going to be areas of improvement, but I think in general, the code really helps. And some of the more conversations we're now having, like TMR, for example, we are seeing it as a policy matter which will regulate margins. But ultimately, it's also back to trust. Because, I saw this with when it happened in medical devices with knee implants. The moment there was a clear pricing rolled out with clear margins of 8-16, and that's the max, there was no way hospitals could make more margins on these products, right? So everybody had to change. So with these policies, there's a lot of transparency also that comes, which sometimes in the moment, we don't see it as a trust indicator, but in the long run, it will become ultimately. The more things are controlled in a way, the more things are regulated, the more there will be an overall common person's trust on our industry. So I feel, it's moving in that right direction.
You spoke on trust. Now, let me take you back to our discussion on mentorship. So, if today you want to talk to people who want to enter into the industry, what is that one message you would like to give them?
Yeah, I mean, we talk to, it's a good, how do you define the industry and how do you make someone attracted to our industry?
Right.
I think there are two aspects to it. One is why our industry, and the second is what's important for any career in any industry, right? I think they're both both independently important. So I think why our industry is a much more straightforward answer, which is it's an opportunity to genuinely make a massive difference to a person's life. And healthcare, in good times and in bad times, healthcare is critically important.
Absolutely.
All the way from vaccines, all the way to, oncology and everything in between. Everyone is touched by some healthcare challenge. So I think an ability to make a difference there is so rewarding, is so satisfying that that can often be a very great hook for people who want to have a purpose-driven career. It doesn't mean, and I'm married to someone who's been in consumer goods, my family's been in, automobiles. It doesn't mean that any of those industries are less important, because, it's, my husband is as passionate about selling, washing machines and fridges as I am about selling cancer medicine. So it's not like there's any difference. But I think the point is that, when in tough times, health and education are the two pieces of the puzzle that are critical for every nation. So to be playing a role in one of them is just that much more, exciting. You can be a lot more resilient. We talked about resilience in the beginning. It's a very resilient career in that sense, because it doesn't matter whether it's a great stock market or a poor stock market. Healthcare has to flourish for the country to do well. So I think that to me is a big hook for our industry. In terms of careers, I think it's and I'm practicing that as we speak with my son. He's only a freshman, but he will soon start looking at jobs. And I think the first thing is pick something you really love doing, because so much of our time and energy goes into work that if it's not something you enjoy, then don't do it, because it's going to take away so much energy and you only live once.
It'll burn you out.
It'll burn you out. It's just not worth it. There are too many other exciting opportunities. So I think these are all going to sound cliched, but I just have to say it. I think the first is do what you really enjoy. I think second is, and I know this is not going to be a popular statement, but there is no substitute for hard work. When you're starting a career, I'd love to say, you need to have work-life balance from day zero. And I do believe that. But definition of work-life balance to me has changed over time. I think when I started out, I was not really thinking of, it was all about hard work. It was, and I think in a way, maybe consulting does that to you. But the most important thing was at least I was in control of my time to some extent. But there were many days when I was not in control of my time. But I don't regret any of that. So I think somewhere we see hard work and work-life balance as two opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's where I slightly feel like you need to have that, when you're starting out in your career, the work is important. You learn through that, you experience good and bad through that, you fail through that, you stand out through that. Because the world is full of smart people, but somewhere you need to, stand out as well. So I do feel there's no substitute for hard work. It does not mean I'm saying you shouldn't have work-life balance. There are many ways to achieve work-life balance. And I go back to my first point. If you do what you love, hard work will not feel like a compromise. If you're doing something you do not like, hard work is such a pain. So I think the moment you add the two up, maybe that will help new people getting started. And I guess the last thing I'd say is the importance of, kind of taking ownership, taking full responsibility of what you're doing. It's sometimes it's easier when you're in, it's harder when you're in junior positions to feel like the buck stops with you. But I found that people who take that approach, who take that attitude that, the buck stops with me, sometimes just, go above and beyond to deliver the best of their potential, because they're not relying on others to be checkers and balancers and so on. So somewhere just that feeling of whatever I'm doing, the buck stops with me, I think just helps the ownership of the quality of what you're doing, the ownership of the impact of what you're doing. If you're, even as someone who's doing analysis, think about the impact of that analysis, not just about the maths of the analysis. If someone is doing communication, the impact of that communication, not just about getting a piece out, right? In sales, it's not just about doing the calls, it's about the impact of the call. How am I going to change the doctor's prescription behavior, whatever it is. But I think just owning the outcome, I feel, will make the person stand out in whatever he or she does. So yeah, I think I'd say maybe those three very cliched things.
But very important.
I think so, yes.
I agree. I agree. As we close, time now for the human dose. So very quickly on a rapid fire section, Meenakshi, what's your favorite book?
I have many favorite books because I read a lot, but on my fiction list, you don't want to know, because it ranges all the way from Harry Potter to Godfather and everything in the middle. So that you don't want to know. But on the non-fiction side, I think, I do read sometimes, I do read business books, but the two that have stayed with me, one for a long time and one more recently, is it's a book called Leadership from the Inside Out. It was written by a guy called Kevin Cashman. He used to be a coach. In fact, I had a chance of attending some of his sessions. And it's all about the importance of being an authentic leader.
So from books to films, your favorite film or films?
Again, we watch a lot of films, so that shows how much work-life balance I have, because I'm only reading and watching movies. But I think, again, and this is probably because I stayed 3 years in South Africa, and I stayed there in 2000, which was about 4 or 5 years after apartheid. And there's a movie called Invictus, which is Matt Damon, and it's all about, the movie is about, it's about rugby, but it's also about how the person who's acting as Mandela uses rugby as a way to bring together the white and the Afrikaans and the black communities, and how he does that. And I don't love the movie for the message it sends. I just love the movie for the vastness of thinking. To think that sport can unite a country is a very big definition of leadership. And both the person acting as Mandela and the person acting as the rugby captain, Matt Damon, show absolutely immense leadership through that. So I've loved that movie, but I think part of it is also because I stayed there.
You've stayed there.
Yeah, I don't think it will mean the same to many other people, but Invictus for me is and actually there's a poem called Invictus, which is the starting, if you've seen it. The poem's beautiful, but the movie is done incredibly. So one of those movies that
stayed with you.
Stayed with me, meaning I really do watch it, I think, once every 2-3 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we do end up watching it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you unwind?
So, till August last year, till my son hadn't gone to college, a lot of my unwinding was actually winding him up, I think, to get the job done. But yeah, now he's off. So now we are empty nesters. So yeah, we do read a lot. We travel a lot. So I'm always somewhere or the other, particularly wildlife.
Wow.
So I think we go to Ranthambore 3 times a year. From
Amazing.
Delhi, it's very easy because it's like a
Right.
4-hour drive now.
Right.
But between Ranthambore and all the Madhya Pradesh parks and Kabini near you guys, you know, or even, you know, this the
Tadoba.
Tadoba is near you.
Yes,
Kabini is still
yes,
south. So I
yes.
think, yeah, we do a lot of wildlife, but also generally a lot of holidays, short holidays. So traveling is something we've loved. And I guess that's because, you know, I've lived and worked in 9 countries. So I always feel like travel is the most precious part of the experience we've had. So we keep traveling. So traveling, reading, watching movies, spending time with friends. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
So before we close, Meenakshi, if you weren't in pharma, what would you have been doing and where would you have been?
I have thought of it, thinking, okay, what else, you know, I would do. And the one profession that I'm really passionate, not passionate, that's the wrong word. The one profession that I would love to be in, and I'm actually beginning to think that I will do it someday, which is really quite stupid of me, is to become a lawyer. So
Interesting.
I know not normal, and I know you can imagine I run away from contracts, so it's not like I love law in my current job, but I just feel like that whole. I think maybe I've watched
You're
too
drawn
many.
to it. Oh,
yeah,
you're
I've
watching
watched too many of these
detective or
detective and
thrillers.
thrillers and legal films. But yeah, I do think that's a profession I would love to at some point get into. And whether it's, you know, I mean, I don't know whether it's civil law, criminal law, what kind of law, not patent law, not things like that, but much more just about using logic and argument to solve other people's problems. I'm wording it like that because that's how I worded it in my own head to make it sound purposeful. But I think that's what I feel like. It's a, you know, it's a great opportunity. So I think at some point I will study law. Yes.
Interesting.
But that's a profession I would love to. I feel like I can do it. And I feel like I have to at least try it once. So yes, that's what my chapter 2 will be. Yeah.
Interesting. Meenakshi, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I think, you know, your journey from consulting to so many different sectors and then now in pharma and also across various countries and cultures. It's been wonderful, and I'm sure our viewers would also love to hear that even more in detail. But thank you so much for joining in today.
Thanks, Asawari. Thanks for the opportunity. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
To our viewers, this was the Pharma Frontiers by OPPI, where partnerships, leadership, and innovation come together to shape the future of healthcare. See you in the next episode. Namaste.